I'm Dan Churchill. Thank you for having me here today. Katie said I've been here for 9 years. I cannot believe it's been 9 years. I started here actually when the building wasn't even open yet. The floors in the lobby were still concrete. There was no desk at the front lobby area. Our offices weren't done. It's amazing to see now, a finished building that's thriving and growing and doing amazing things. So thank you for having me here today. Usually there's a couple questions that people want to know about me. The first one is, where'd you get that red hair? It turns out both sides of my family have red hair, but I'm the only one of my generation that was lucky enough to get both sides to have red hair. So I feel really lucky about that. And I've kept it all these years. I'm 42 now, I can't believe it's still this red. Then the second question I usually get is, are you related to Winston? Because my last name is Churchill. I don't know the exact answer to that, but I do know that we have a common ancestor. So I think we've come from the same roots as far as that goes. So I like to call him my quasi-relative. So anyway. All right, well, let's jump into what we're going to talk about today. Let me see if this will work. So first, what is the Admiral? Well, the Admiral at the Lake is a life plan community, life care community. Right now, we're actually 93% occupied, which is great. And if you are someone who is looking at other life plan or life care communities, make sure you know what their occupancy is, because that is a sign of good financial health. We have 196 apartments, and within independent living, we also offer outpatient rehab. And then we have another section of the building under the same roof that we call the harbors. And the harbors consist of assisted living, memory support, and skilled nursing. And within skilled nursing, we offer inpatient rehab. So if you needed that, that's there. So I found this great quote, and the quote is, if you have an important point to make, don't be subtle or clever, use a pile driver. And then the quote goes on to say, and then pound it in and pound it in. Anyone have a guess as to who might have said this? No one? The name has already been mentioned. Winston, yes. My quasi-relative. So there he is. I think maybe there's a little bit of resemblance. But I'll take it. The reason I like this quote is because I'm not a salesperson and I will never be a salesperson. What I'm doing here with you today is just to provide a framework that you can use to evaluate whether or not the Admiral or any other life care, life plan community might make financial sense for you. Does that make sense? So I'm not here to sell you. In fact, when I was in college, I was trying to figure out, should I major in marketing or should I major in accounting? And when I found out that marketing is a lot of sales, I said, no thank you, I will stick to accounting. So that's why I somehow magically ended up being a CFO here. So when we think about life care is really the only financial structure under which you will have predictable monthly fees for long-term care. Okay, and we'll get to why that is here in a minute. It's interesting because a life care community is actually not intended to be sort of this low-cost alternative to staying at home for as long as you can and then moving into one of those assisted living facilities or skilled nursing facilities. But because of the way our fees are structured today, it actually does provide some significant savings for folks over their lifetime. So that's what we're here to talk about. Okay, the first thing you should know is that in order to move to the Admiral, there's an upfront fee that you'll have to pay. And that fee is called an entrance fee. That fee can be up to 90% refunded to your estate when the contract is terminated. So we have different plans, but they can go all the way up to 90%. And we'll talk more about that too. Then you will pay ongoing monthly fees, as you would expect probably. And your future costs for assisted living or memory support or skilled nursing will be at reduced and very predictable costs for you. Okay, so that's where we come with the predictable and low cost piece. So this question always comes up. So what is included in the monthly fees that you pay? Well, the first thing is the meals. So there's a complimentary breakfast, and then within the residency agreement, it provides folks at least one meal per day. So if it's lunch or it's dinner, whichever. So you'll have that included. Housekeeping every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, there's a housekeeper who will come in and they do some light housekeeping, and they'll wash and change the bed linens and that kind of thing every 2 weeks. We have a fitness center, and some of you who arrived early saw Katie up on the screen doing a fitness class. That fitness class was actually broadcast throughout the in-house TV channel, so people were at home doing their exercises if they couldn't make it down to the fitness class. We have a pool. You'll see the pool today if you haven't already seen it. There's also a lot of classes that the instructor has there. From what I hear, they're wildly popular. I see residents in bathrobes and swimsuits all the time walking through the halls, which is great. Within independent living, which is unique to Lifecare communities, is we have a social worker and we have a wellness coordinator. Both are available to help you with any kind of situation that may come up for you. All the utilities are included. The heat, the air conditioning, the water, garbage, all that is included. The one thing I didn't mention at the top was that the Admiral is also a nonprofit organization. So the first thing to know about a nonprofit, as I'm sure you know, is that the money that the Admiral earns doesn't go back into someone's pocket. It doesn't go into an owner's pocket. It's reinvested back into the Admiral. But the second thing to know about that, as it relates to this, is we also don't pay real estate taxes here. So that's another cost that kind of goes away. Any repairs that might be needed in the apartment are things that we take care of, so leaky faucets, something happens with your air conditioning or heat or anything like that, all that is included. And then we do have a regular transportation route around Chicago, and so that's also included within the monthly fee. We offer some well-being checks if you would like to be someone who likes to have a check every once in a while to make sure things are okay. We have this really cool meditation space on the 6th floor where it's a space that a resident actually donated this beautiful wood and stained glass piece that sort of fills the room with this nice kind of soft light. It's a place where you can go and reflect and really do whatever there. And then we have a library, and then we also have a creative art studio. And you'll get a chance to see all these spaces on your tour today. So why would you want Lifecare? What Lifecare does is it actually provides you a plan for your life. It provides financial security, and we'll talk about that. And it also provides some logistical security, believe it or not. So if you think about, your loved ones, a spouse, a partner who may need a different level of care than you, it's all under the same building. So there's no needing to go off to some other facility or anything like that. It's all under one roof. All of our Lifecare members here have priority access to those higher levels of care. So in assisted living, memory support, and skilled nursing, should you ever need those services, and that time comes, you are bumped to the front of the line for the next available apartment, or you'll be the first one in. You get priority over everybody else, which is kind of nice. So there's some of that security piece there. It does provide a peace of mind, and we'll talk about why that is in a minute. Predictable and discounted long-term care, which is why we're here today. And then the thing you should know about being a Lifecare resident is that should you run out of money through no fault of your own, The Admiral has an obligation to support you. So we will never kick you out. You wouldn't become homeless at some point for that reason. We have an obligation to support your monthly fee for you. And we're lucky enough to be the beneficiary of some trusts that long ago, people who were connected with the Admiral, very prominent Chicago figurehead type people, left trusts as part of their estate. And what they did was they said, okay, you, the Admiral, and you, this nonprofit, and then this other nonprofit, you can get the income from this trust as long as the trust is still alive. So we are lucky enough to have 6 of those. And so we use that money to help support residents who have run out of money. Now know that I said it's through no fault of your own. That's a key piece. If you gamble your money away, or if you've donated your money away, that really wouldn't be through no fault of your own. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I get this question all the time. Well, why would I move to the Admiral or any life care community if I can just stay at home for free, right? Well, staying at home, is that really for free? Usually not. You're gonna still have real estate taxes, you're still gonna have repair costs, upkeep costs, sometimes HOA fees if you're part of a homeowners association. You know, all of those ongoing costs are still there. So always keep that in mind. So it's not actually staying at home for free. So we're going to get into some numbers. And before I do that, I always have to give this disclaimer. So we're going to look at these numbers, and those numbers are based off of sort of the average resident who might move into the Admiral. And what that means is I have prepared these numbers for someone who is 80 years old and moving into independent living. And then what I do is I look at actuarial tables to say, well, what is the expected lifetime of that resident? And where will they be in the community, whether that's independent living, assisted living, or memory support? And then how long will they live in those areas? I know that not everybody in here is 80 years old. And I know that everyone in here has a different health status as well. So take this with a little bit of grain of salt when you think about using this for yourself, but it's a good framework to think about it nonetheless. Okay, so the first thing we do is we assume that your income and your expenses are exactly equal. So all of the monthly income that you have coming in, maybe that's Social Security, maybe that's your pension, maybe that's your required minimum distributions from your IRA, those types of things. All of that money coming in is exactly what you have to spend every month on expenses for yourself, okay? So the net is 0. So you're not saving any additional money over time. So that's the assumption here. And so with that, the cost of long-term care, if you were to stay at home, and if you were to move into one of those assisted living facilities or skilled nursing facilities when the time came, for one person that would cost $504,000 over that person's lifetime. Okay? If it's a couple, then we double it. It's going to cost the couple just over $1 million over their lifetime. Okay, does that make sense? So you're staying at home, and then when the time comes, you're going to move to one of those assisted living communities or skilled nursing facilities. This is what it will cost you. Okay. So then you got to think about how you're going to pay for it. Well, maybe you have a house that you might need to sell, or you might have an investment portfolio. So you will need to sell the house or draw down on those funds in order to pay for this long-term care. So then let's think about how that's different from moving into a life plan community like the Admiral. Again, we're going to assume that your income and your expenses are equal, so you're not saving any money every month. You're spending exactly what comes in. The cost of long-term care here at the Admiral for one person is about $337,000. So you're moving into independent living, and when the time comes, you'll move into our assisted living community, our member support community, and our skilled nursing community, again, all under the one roof. So those higher levels of care will cost $337,000. And then for 2 people, that cost will be about $529,000. So you can already see that there's a difference there, and we'll talk about why. So what that means is you will need to figure out a way to pay for it, just like you would if you were staying at home. You have a house to sell, most likely, or a condo. You will have to liquidate some of your investment portfolio in order to help pay for these costs. Okay, is everybody with me? So I know sometimes when I start talking about numbers, some eyes glaze over, can be a little dry, but it looks like people are there with me. So I just want to do a check and make sure. Are you with me? All right, good. By the way, yes, I'm so glad you have a question.
Is this for an 80-year-old or for?
This is under the assumption that this person is 80 years old, moving into the Admiral. Yes.
Is these figures only cover the assisted living, the memory care, etc.? Those don't include, or do they?
So the question is, do these figures only factor in the assisted living, memory support, and skilled nursing? And
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'm just repeating your question. So your question was, do these figures only factor in assisted living, memory support, and skilled nursing? And yes, we're only talking about the cost of long-term care. Yeah. Another question.
I already have long-term life care.
Oh.
So what do I do in my case?
So if I have long-term care insurance, what should I do? We're going to get to that. Great question. Okay. Yes.
So there's the entrance fee and there's the money. So how do your numbers reflect that? Is that just the monthly that an 80-year-old is going to pay? Which you don't have the entrance fee because the entrance fees are pretty high?
Yeah. I'm going to show you a calculation here in a minute.
Repeat the question.
She was talking about, does it factor in how you have to pay the entrance fee and the monthly fees? But I'm going to show you how to factor that in when you think about your own financial position. That's coming up. Yes. Okay, so this is the difference, so the savings that you will have over your expected lifetime of staying at home and moving into one of those assisted living facilities versus moving to the Admiral or another life plan community like the Admiral. This is what you could potentially save over your lifetime. So one person could save about $137,000, and then for 2 people, it could save about $479,000. By the way, 2 people doesn't mean that it has to be a married couple either. It could be brother, sister, it could be partners, it could be just 2 friends. So it doesn't mean that you have to be married.
Within the same.
What's
Within
that?
the same apartment.
Yes, it does mean you're living in the same apartment, right? Okay, so this is that calculation for that last question. So I'm going to focus over here on the left-hand side. So the left-hand side is thinking about your financial position without life care. So this would be sort of like your homework to do as you're going around and looking at other communities or thinking about moving to the Admiral. So first, I want you to take the value of your investments. Then I want you to add the sales price of your home, because all those are going to be used to help pay for the cost of long-term care. And then subtract out what that cost of long-term care is. So for one person, that's $504,000. If you are 2 people, $1,008,000. Okay? So then let's compare that now to the right-hand side of the screen. So the right-hand side of the screen is under life care here at the Admiral. You would start off by using your investments. Add to that the sales price of your home. Okay? Then, remember there's that entrance fee payment that you need to make to move in here. So subtract out what that entrance fee would be. Then again, subtract out the cost of long-term care. And for one person, that's $337,000. And for 2 people, that's $529,000. So remember that at the beginning, I was talking about how that entrance fee can be up to 90% refunded to your estate. Well, then I want you to add that back. So add 90% of the entrance fee back into the equation, because that's going back to you, to your estate. Okay, does that make sense?
Say it again.
So I'll say it again, yeah, because this is an important slide. Okay, so let's focus on the right-hand side. I'm sorry, the left-hand side. And the left-hand side is you are not moving to the Admiral. You're going to stay at home for as long as you can. And then when the time comes, you're moved to one of those assisted living facilities or skilled nursing facility. So the first thing I want you to do is take the value of any investments that you have, add to that the sale price of your home, because those are the things you're going to use to pay for your long-term care. Then subtract out the cost of long-term care. For one person, that's $504,000, and for two people, that's $1,008,000. It's crazy to think that that's now over $1 million to me. Okay, so then you compare that with the right-hand side of the screen, and the right-hand side is moving into the Admiral under a life care agreement or a life plan community. So you're going to start off in the same way. You're going to take the value of your investments plus the sale price of your home. But then because you have to pay an entrance fee, subtract out that entrance fee. So minus the entrance fee. Then subtract out the cost of long-term care here at the Admiral. So that would be one person, $337,000, and for two people, $529,000. But then remember that that entrance fee has a refund back to the estate, and that can be up to 90%. So then add back 90% of that entrance fee payment back. Okay, does that make sense?
Except you still have to come up with $800,000 or, whatever. So I mean, at least talk about that.
How you come up with the entrance
Well, I
fee?
mean, yeah, you gotta come up with the entrance fee.
Yeah, you gotta come up with the entrance fee. And where it's gonna come from is any investments that you might have.
Well, I know.
It will come from the sale price of your home.
I know, but the point is that you have to you're gonna have to liquidate and come up with the entrance fee. I mean,
That's right.
That needs to be said.
Yeah, well, that's the point of this, yes.
And you wait for one of us to hand you a mic, then everybody can hear your question.
Okay, my question is, it's up to 90%, the insurance of your estate gets back. If you go into long-term care or somehow don't have enough money, before they go to your public funds, don't they first go to your entrance fee to take money out of that? So it's not always 90%?
Good question. So I'm gonna ask you a question a different way. So remember before when I said if you run out of money, if you run out of assets, the Admiral has an obligation just to help support you in your monthly fee. Well, if you have a 90% or some other percent of the refund of that entrance fee coming back to your estate, the first place we're gonna go to is that entrance fee refund to help support you, because that's part of your money. Now, let's say that runs out. Then the Admiral will fully support you in however is needed. So you're right, the first place we will go is that entrance fee refund to help support. Yeah.
What percentage of the people so far that have moved in here actually have run out, that they've used up their entrance fee, and then you have to use your general funds to support them? What percentage has that been in the last 9 years since this place is open?
So the question is, what percentage of people have started to need to use the Admiral's help in supporting their monthly fee? It's a very low percentage. There's a handful of people right now who have qualified for this, and that's partly because we are only 9 years old as a community. So people moved in 9 years ago. It's only 9 years at this point. So there's a long way to go before they might run out of their money.
So is it more like 2% or 10%?
Well, it's only a handful of people out of 250. Yeah. And we look at that. We look at that over time, and we're projecting out to see how much money might we need to have in the future set aside for when residents might run out of money. And so we are looking at that every year.
Dan, can you talk a little bit about Lifecare approval?
Yes.
On the finances that it's.
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about what it takes to qualify for Lifecare here at the Admiral. So to move in into independent living. There are two pieces to that qualification process. The first piece is sort of a health analysis. And so what that health analysis tries to do is just to say, can this person, this new resident, live independently for at least a couple years? Because what we don't want to have happen is someone to move into independent living, knowing that they're just going to need to move to assisted living or memory support or skilled nursing right away. That wouldn't do the resident justice. The second qualification process is a financial qualification process. And we do that for two reasons. The first reason is we want to make sure that you don't run out of money so that the Admiral can remain a financial viable entity so that you have a home for however long. The second piece of that is we don't want you to move in and be house poor either. We don't want all your money come to the Admiral. We want you to move in and be able to do the things that you want to do. If you want to travel, or if there's other things that you like to do, we want you to be able to have those funds to be able to do that. So there's two pieces to that qualification process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I have a question. I don't know where the mic is, but
I'll repeat
do
it.
you, through no fault of your own, when you evaluate those terms, does the Admiral make the decision as to whether the type of travel we've done, how much we've done, where we've spent our money, does that come into through no fault of your own where we no longer qualify for this benefit?
So the question is,
If I can repeat it,
yeah, I was going to say it a different way than I asked.
does the Admiral evaluate how you spend your money? In other words, travel. You've traveled first class to see your grandchildren, okay? You've gone on 3 cruises, first class cruises. You've gone to the symphony with box seats. And then you run out of money, okay? After 10 years. Does the Admiral evaluate the term through no fault of your own? Well, you were too extravagant in your spending. Does the Admiral do that? And if not, where do you draw the line? When you say you want us to live our lives as long as we're healthy and can do these things.
Yes, so there is an evaluation that's done. The thing that we're looking for is things like, was there a gambling problem? Was there a drinking problem? Were there things that were significant financially that are causing this person to be in the condition where they are today? Traveling, flying first class, doing your regular donations to charities, those types of things we're not worried about. That's the kind of thing we're not worried about. We're worried about, did you gift all your money away so now you can't pay the Admiral? Did you gamble all your money away and now you can't pay the Admiral? Like I said, we want you to live your life. And so you should know and be financially savvy enough with your own money to know when you might be overspending. But I'm not going to look at you and say, you flew first class 5 times, that's too much. So be assured, it's not an evaluation like that.
Okay, do you have the final call as to when a person has to go into assisted living or memory care, or is that left up to the family?
So who makes the decision when it's time to move to a higher level of care?
Yeah.
There is a very collaborative process around moving to a different apartment. And maybe that's assisted living, maybe that's memory support, or maybe that's skilled nursing. And that collaborative process includes an interdisciplinary team here at the Admiral. That would include our social worker. It includes the wellness coordinator. It includes the resident services director. It includes you. It includes your spouse or partner. It includes your family, your loved ones, and it includes our medical director. So it's not something where we are going to say, Susie, today's the day, you have to move. There's nothing like that. That discussion happens far, far in advance of when the move would actually occur. And it's a mutually agreed upon move. There's no force of movement. Now, having said that, if you are putting yourself in danger, or if you might be putting other residents in danger, that's a different conversation. But when there is discussions around possibly moving to a higher level of care, know that the resident is at the center of that conversation, not the Admiral, not the finances of the Admiral, or anything like that. Okay. I know that money is not the only factor when considering to move to a community like this. So I think about this as risk management, actually. So for example,
Question, Dan.
oh, yes.
I have a long-term care insurance policy which covers from day one up to $1 million. That's about $5,500 a year. Would that cover expenses here at the Admiral?
So the question is, does long-term care insurance cover costs here at the Admiral? Yes, and I will get into that in a little bit. So the first one, when I think about risk management, I think about, well, will you be able to maintain your house and be able to keep up with it over time? I have a hard enough time keeping up with my own house. What happens if there's an extended illness? Will you be able to find the care, find the right kind of care, that type of thing? Will you be able to manage your investments and manage your cash flow over time appropriately to help pay for your cost of long-term care? What will long-term care insurance cover if you have it? So if you do have long-term care insurance, I would suggest that you keep it, because you can use that to pay for monthly fees in assisted living, memory support, and skilled nursing here at the Admiral. Most of those policies also cover some in-home care. And if you're living in independent living and you have in-home care, those policies can cover that as well. Will I be able to get to where I need to go? We're lucky enough to be right here on the 147 bus, which gets you right downtown, which is kind of handy. But then separately from that, what if your spouse or partner needs to move to assisted living or skilled nursing, and will you be able to get there when you want to get there? Here, it's kind of nice because it's all just under one roof. It's down one elevator and up another one.
Can we just go back to the long-term care insurance?
Sure, long-term care
I
insurance.
understand you to be saying that if you have long-term care insurance, and you come to the Admiral and you need assisted living, or you need to go to memory care, or you need to go to skilled nursing, you would make a claim against your policy to pay for all or a portion of the care.
That's correct.
Is that your representation?
Yes, so if you have a long-term care insurance policy and you are living in assisted living, memory support, or skilled nursing, all you would do is tell your long-term care insurance policy, hey, here's my bill, and here are the services that are being provided to me. So you're making a claim, then they will reimburse you for those costs. That's how that works. Harris?
I'm in that situation. We have long-term care. My wife is in the care center, and our costs have actually gone down on a monthly basis since she went to the care center because of the reimbursement from our long-term care policy.
If you do have long-term care insurance, you've probably gotten some notices over the last few years that tell you how much your premiums are going up. Skyrocketing, more like. Well, we help residents with that because the cost of long-term care, remember how it's lower when you move to a lifeline community like the Admiral? What we can do is strategize around what your benefit needs to be in order to lower your premium costs. So I help residents almost on a monthly basis look at their long-term care insurance policies to find the right level of benefit to minimize your costs on the premium. So keep that in mind too. What happens if something happens to you, you have surgery or something, and now you're home? There's that feeling of isolation. I can tell you that my grandmother, she was the type of person who was very social in her small town. She was a teacher, and then when her and her husband, my grandfather, they would go to cotillion all the time, just very involved people. At one point, she broke her hip. And she was never quite the same after that, and was sort of homebound for a long period of time. And became, honestly, very depressed. And it was really kind of sad. But she was adamant that she did not want to move anywhere. She wanted to stay home. Somehow, magically, we talked her into at least exploring the option. And we ended up finding an assisted living community for her. And with all the activities that sort of happened within assisted living, it was like she came alive again. And the pandemic, even up until now, when I think about everyone, we've all had to stay home for so long, and you kind of felt like you were in isolation. That was hard. It was hard for me, it was hard for you, I bet. And, that's really difficult. So think about social isolation as a factor. What happens if something happens to your home? You have a large, unexpected repair expense. Your AC goes out, your heat goes out, your roof needs to get repaired, or your condo building now has a special assessment. I have a friend who lives in a building just right here on Lakeshore Drive, and they slapped a special assessment on every single resident, $30,000 per condo. There was something major happening in the building. But I just can't imagine trying to come up with that. If you need in-home help, will you be able to find the right in-home help for you and people that you know will care for you properly? And then, of course, what happens if you run out of money? Okay, I want to talk a little bit about taxes, too. So moving to the Admiral, the IRS has deemed a portion of the entrance fee and a portion of the ongoing monthly fee to be considered a prepaid medical expense that you can deduct as a deduction on your tax return, assuming that you itemize and you meet the thresholds for that. So the year you pay your entrance fee is also a year that you get a pretty big, hefty medical deduction. And for two people, that could be something around $60,000 or so. So it's big. So we can strategize with you around, if you're someone who has to liquidate some investments and you're going to get some tax burden because of that, well, let's also talk about your tax benefit that year that you're going to get because you paid that entrance fee. So there's some strategy that goes into that. But then every year, as long as you're paying a monthly fee to the Admiral, you will get a deduction for a portion of that monthly fee. So that's an ongoing deduction you will always be able to take.
And how big this portion is?
How big is the monthly fee portion? It's about $2,500 a month. Times 12 for the year. So that would be your medical deduction for the monthly fee. Yeah.
What percentage of the entrance fee is deducted as a medical IRS?
So the question is, what's the percentage of the entrance fee? Well, the percentage of the entrance fee that is able to be deducted is dependent upon the amount of the entrance fee you paid. And the reason I say that is because the entrance fee deduction, along with the monthly fee deductions, are the same for all residents. And that's because you're looking at the future costs of long-term care, not what you're paying in independent living. And so everyone on average is paying about the same amount for higher levels of care. And so it's based off that. It's not based off what you're paying in independent living. Yes, another question.
Is it the same if you're paying, 90% deduction, 50% deduction, or 0% deduction?
Yes, it's the same. Same amount. We actually use actuaries to calculate that amount for us. And so every year you would get a letter from me that says, here's how much you can take if you paid your entrance fee this year, and here's how much of the monthly fee you can take as a deduction for the year.
And this is if you live in the regular part, not if you're in the special care part.
This is if you're living in independent living. If you're living in assisted living, memory support, and skilled nursing, all of those costs are considered medical expense. So all of those costs can be deducted on your tax return.
So their deductions, you only get a percentage according to your highest percentage on your taxes of whatever those deductions are.
Right, remember deductions are only reducing your income that will ultimately get taxed. So yes. Okay. So just to sort of wrap up as a reminder, why would you ever want Lifecare? Well, it provides a plan for you, and it provides a sense of security for you. We're not going to kick you out. Your costs for future long-term care are much lower than they would be if you were to stay at home and then move into one of those facilities. And not only that, they are predictable. Generally, every year there is an increase on the monthly fees, but that increase is much different than what it looks like at one of those assisted living facilities. Those fees are rising 7-10% a year. Here at the Admiral, on average, we're around 2 to 4% every year as a monthly fee increase. So it's much more predictable and much more stable in that way. Of course, it provides a peace of mind. I think that's one of the biggest reasons that I hear from our current residents as to why they moved in. I just feel like I am now safe moving to the Admiral. And then, of course, if you run out of money, then we have an obligation to help support you at that point. Another question.
Usually, if you were living in your home and you run out of money, Medicaid will kick in. Does Medicaid kick in here?
No, we are not Medicaid certified. So we would not go ask Medicaid to help support our residents. We do that on our own. And we budget for that every single year. And I don't know if you've seen some of those Medicaid facilities, but they're not the greatest.
No.
So.
Yes, I noticed that the cost for getting a mortgage is lower. They decreased the cost, and property cost is decreased. How do you incorporate that with your plans for financial things here at Admiral? How the things are going down, they're not going up, okay?
So it depends on where you are and the type of home you have. Interest rates are going down, which is excellent for people who are trying to buy a home. So in that way, the housing market has actually been amazing over the last 6 or 8 months. So people are buying up properties left and right. There was a marketing presentation recently, and they were talking about the amount of inventory or the number of homes that are even available to buy being at record lows. Wasn't that right? So that's fascinating. So that's actually to your benefit. If you have a home to sell, it's a good time to actually sell it because of people wanting to buy homes these days. And what we're actually seeing in the Chicago market, at least, is that home values are still rising. And in some areas, rising much faster than others. And some of that is because single-family homes, those housing prices are just skyrocketing these days. I have a friend of mine who, they just adopted a baby, and so they wanted to move out of their little one-bedroom condo to buy a house. And they bought a house and they paid $50,000 over asking to get it. And so that, the housing market now is really good. And when you think about that, you know what you can get for your house today. That's the thing you know. What you don't know is what is my home going to be worth 5 years from now, 2 years from now, because you don't know what's going to happen in the market, but you do know what it is right now. So that it's to your benefit to know that. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
My question is, how is Lifecare incorporating this? Since prices are going down on some things, you mentioned. So how do you rate the numbers that you quoted?
So the only thing I'm calculating up here is what the long-term care costs are.
Long-term.
So you will factor in what your home is worth today in that equation from before. So that's how you will do it. And everybody is different. So that's why I didn't want to put anything like that here in that equation. So you will take that framework and plug in your amounts for yourself. But we're not seeing prices go down necessarily across Chicago. We're actually seeing them go up still. Another question?
I'm asking about, the long-term care, whether it's through living here originally in the regular living program, or whether you go directly into long-term care. You're saying that the expense of it is deductible, in the IRS as a medical expense each year.
Yes.
And, they usually, each year it's 10%, or 7 or 10% or something, you first have they deduct that from what's deductible, and then what's left over is deductible.
Right.
Is that how it works?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So if you're someone who itemizes on your tax return Schedule A, there's a threshold you have to meet before you can start deducting medical expenses, and I think that's now 10% of your gross income.
So the first 10% is not even counted, but after that.
Right. And that's based on your individual income. 10% of your individual income.
And all long-term care is eligible for that.
Yes.
You have any statistics on how much you have to be initially worth to buy into this place? You know, you take what you think your home's gonna be, you take your investments, and you have a net worth. Do you have any statistics on what you would advise somebody not to come in because of what they have?
Yeah, so the question is, do you have any advice on what someone's net worth needs to be to move to the Admiral? What I will tell you is the prices here at the Admiral, the entrance fee and the ongoing monthly fee is a wide range. So, you know, from a low end of around $300,000 or $400,000 all the way up, you know, something higher than that. So it just really depends on the type of apartment you'd want to move into, where that apartment is, middling, that kind of thing. So I don't have a hard and fast rule for you on that. It just depends on what you're looking for. But generally speaking, the residents who have moved in have such a wide range of net worths across the board, which actually I love. I love that we're able to do that.
Can you give us that range? That was the next one.
I don't think I can give you that range right now. I don't have the figures in my head.
We probably have time for one more question. It's about 5 till noon.
Who owns the Admiral?
I'm sorry?
Who owns the Admiral?
Who owns the Admiral? Good question. No one owns the Admiral.
No.
No, we are a nonprofit organization, so we don't have any owners. But we do have a board of directors, and the board of directors is charged with governance of the organization. So any money that the Admiral makes at the end of the day doesn't go back into an owner's pocket, it's reinvested into the community.
I haven't seen a list of names of who's on the board of directors.
The list of board of directors is on our website.
Oh, it's
This
on
is
the
a good place to
website?
look for that,
Okay.
yes.